Good afternoon, everybody. First and foremost, I appreciate y'all showing up for this. This means a lot to me to see all of these faces in the room. I'm overwhelmed right now because again, this is not about me. This is about us. This is about us as citizens who live in Erie. As far as us figuring out what we can do for one another, how we can build our supports, how we can build our network. And we're gonna have an opportunity to have a conversation with some individuals who are experts in the field, and we have some community panelists who have some questions who speak to their concerns. And the goal and the objective is for us to have productive conversations to where we can understand who's who, what's what, and to build resources for our community. I got this idea from a previous town hall meeting that I came in here before, and I seen the room was full of people who had concerns for Erie, and it was more or less like, I want to do something like that for the neighborhoods that I reside in, the places that I live, and that's pretty much how this came to fruition. I'm gonna give all of my guests the opportunity to introduce themselves, as well as with my co-moderator, but first and foremost, if you all don't mind, can I get a round of applause for yourselves just for showing up? Because it truly does mean a lot to me, and this is my first time ever doing something like this, so I'm gonna be relying heavily on Mr. Brandon Wiley here, and I'm gonna pass it over to him and allow him to do his introduction and his thing before we kind of get started. But thank you all again for showing up.
And that's why we were brought here today, is to share our beliefs, to share our perspectives, to share our concerns. We're not gonna get everything fixed and figured out today, but the goal is to evolve the conversation, to meet in the middle despite our opinions and our beliefs, and you're entitled to them. You're entitled to those opinions, you're entitled to those beliefs, but we have to find some commonality, because otherwise we're just gonna continue to engage with each other, and we're gonna continue to bump heads, and we're gonna continue to circle around the issues that we have here in our community. So that's what this tonight is about. It's about evolving the conversation, moving forward. And so we of course wanna lay some groundwork real quick too, for you all, and some housekeeping. Of course, this is a respectful environment. We want to keep things respectful. We want to keep things productive. We don't want no attacks. That's not the goal, the objective of tonight. The goal tonight is, again, to ask questions, to voice concerns, but to be respectful, to be empathetic. Let's put that word at the forefront tonight, is empathy. We're all going through something. You're going through something, You might have a concern, I have a concern that bothers me and it's impacting me, but your concern might not impact me. But my goal is to be empathetic to your concerns. That's how we advance.
It's not gonna be the first time that we do this, and what we're gonna end up doing is forcing their hand to come to us because we legitimately have concerns. You know what I mean? So when you have people talking, and you get to the point where we start finger pointing and we start blaming, let me finish. No, I understand what you're saying, and I'm glad that you shared that because you're not the only person who feels that way. But the reason is when you have a panelist and you have people who are connected to some of those people, it's gonna be like, yo, they're calling for you. You gotta speak up. You have to do something. You have to come out. So trust me, I understand what you're saying because I've been in those rooms. I've been a part of those conversations. I understand the nepotism in Erie. I understand how it works. It's the same group getting the money or the same nonprofit organizations. And I believe a lot of us haven't grasped the concept, but it seems as though you have. We're around the same age, grew up in the same neighborhood. We're the elders now. We're the adults now. We're not asking for permission. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna let people know this is our expectations. This is what the community is discussing. This is what we want, and we're coming for it one way or another. So I understand where you're coming from, and I'm glad that you spoke up the way that you did, and I support you, and I hope that you support me and we stand together because, again, when you look around the room, it's very diverse, so it's not a black thing. It's not a white thing. It's not a man thing. It's not a woman thing. It's we the people want more, and we're tired of sitting around waiting. And like you said, I'm tired of going to those meetings and hearing people talk about what's going to happen, and nothing ever happens for us. So thank you for sharing that because you're not the only person in this room who thought that, but I'm telling you, I'm putting mine on it to let you know that I'm going to bust my tail to make sure that this is not just something that we're just talking because we've been seeing this for quite some time. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, let me echo all of what I've heard. I want to thank Deonte and Brandon. What I've said to him privately as well as publicly, my biggest concern is leadership and leadership development, having that pipeline. My name is Daryl Cook. I'm the pastor of Second Baptist Church. I also lead a nonprofit, serve on boards throughout this city. But one thing that I, have heard over and over again is that at 44, I'm a young man, and I appreciate that. But at the same time, I serve a Savior who, when he called men to help him turn the world upside down, these were younger people he had with him. That leadership ought to be placed into the hands of people before they're 30 and 40. That we ought to give them space to mess up and space to figure things out. And so I love Erie. I have been part of the shift and a part of the transition in the faith community, but I also want to see that transition happen across our city, so that we don't just have the wisdom of those who have done it, which we appreciate, but we need the strength of the young who can help us take this thing to the next level. It's not an either or conversation, it's a both and. So that's why I'm certainly excited to be here.
Hello, I'm Marty Wachuku. I'm a community organizer with Erie County United. I've lived in Erie, if you include going to Edinburgh University, a little more than 10 years. Why I'm here and what I'm concerned about is that I share the concerns about youth opportunity. A lot of the people that I think are really brilliant and talented often don't find opportunities here and find it stressful. And it is a stressful thing to often hear them talk about having to move to thrive and find a fit for themselves. But outside of youth opportunity, what I see most often in my work are gaps in resources. Whether it be that there are organizations that exist that only have so much money to serve the community, or there not being resources in general. Renters, young people, new Americans, there are a lot of gaps in resources that are affecting people. And it's really important for us to plan the future for the youth, but what I'm seeing is that many of our elders are being left to fall between the cracks and are suffering. So that is something I want to raise up in this conversation, that yes, let's plan for the future, but let's also make sure that our elders are having comfort as they go into their twilight years.
Hello everybody, my name is Savannah Wilson. I'm 24 years old, so I'm representing Gen Z today. I'm a part of the Jefferson Civic Leadership Academy, where we're currently conducting research on the population decline across the county. Why I was asked to speak today is not only my perspective of the youth, but also because I was pushed around a lot by authoritative figures in the county growing up. I was told I was going to be a failure multiple times throughout my life, and that's only motivated me to be more educated and articulate myself a lot better and how I see and want the future to go for the youth of Erie. So today I will really be asking everybody some very deep questions, and I don't expect anybody to know the answers right away, but this is going to be a call to self-reflection. And for the audience, I really want you guys to ask yourselves, what is the core values that we need to build our community on? What are the core values, and what do we want to teach the youth for the future? Because there is no foundational core values here in my city. They have been erased and they have been dismantled. And it's time to rebuild that. And from a spiritual perspective as well, I feel like our city is really wrapped into spiritual warfare, and that's more invisible. So this is a call for more emotional intelligence and the invisible labor that needs to be done.
My name is Malcolm Pulliam. I am a lifelong Erie resident. I am a former Edinburgh University student. I have a drug and alcohol background. And actually, I see Tracy Thomas back there. She actually brought me into that world. I've taught HIV and AIDS. I've did HIV and AIDS testing. And the way that I find myself on this panel is through the death of Marcella Woodard. So many of you probably see myself and a few other people out here that are outside screaming justice for Cello. That is how I got here. My focus is to make sure that we get change within the Erie City, Erie County government. What happened cannot happen again. So my goal is to make sure that it doesn't happen again. I'm not afraid to tell you guys, and by all means, I am not prejudiced, but I am super pro-Black. And I mean that with all sincerity. But at some point in time, we have to start taking care of our own, and it started with Marcello. And again, that's no disrespect to anybody, but my name is Malcolm for a reason. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Jared Stashevsky. I am a lifelong resident of the County of Erie. I'm 38 years old, a graduate of Cathedral Prep. I'm currently a returning student at Gannon University, set to graduate in May. I'm interested in a wide variety of issues in Erie County. I've played a more active role over the last year. I'm interested in a lot of things about the water. I have an internship with Project Neptune at Gannon University at the library, the Clear exhibit. My father was in the Marine Corps and he passed away from water contamination on base in Camp Lejeune, North Carolina. So I have a personal interest in water quality. I also did a survey on water fluoridation the last 4 months. That's another interest of mine. This is kind of like an icebreaker thing. I'm also into cold water therapy. We break the ice every Sunday at the Presque Isle of the Lake in Bay, if anyone's interested in that. I got here, I've been inspired by a lot of people on the panel here, both professional and the community, and by Deonte. I saw him at city council meetings over a year ago, was really impressed with his leadership and how he was able to articulate things, and I'm glad to see he's still playing an active role in doing something creative like this. So very happy to be here, happy everyone's joined us, and excited to get this going, so thank you.
I got a question, and we'll keep it with the money since we're talking about all this money. How can we spread some of this money? What I see is we spending money on the bayfront. I don't know why, but it's money being spent on the bayfront. I see it's more hotels going down on the bayfront. I don't know why. There's nothing to do on the bayfront. So how can we get some of this money up and over 22nd and German or 35th and Holland or where I live out on the west side? And this probably is more for Chuck. I seen last week on Facebook that they're building that complex on Poplar, between Poplar and Cherry. I live on Poplar. I live on 2nd and Poplar. So I will be right across the street from where they're building. That's a good idea, I guess. I'm sure me and my wife is not gonna sleep some mornings with all the banging and chattering that they're gonna be doing over there. But again, how can we spread some of this money to all these other people? My man back there said he an artist. I'm sure he probably applied for something and you probably got denied because we too busy worried about the bayfront, the hotels. We got more restaurants that aren't working in the city right now than we've ever had before. I've seen so many ribbon cuttings and then in 2 weeks, the place ain't even open no more. How can we get some of these resources to, like that young lady right there? They don't have nothing to do. My grandkids go to Erie High, they go to some of these schools out here, and I know they don't have nothing to do. How can we spread out this money so that, I guess I want to say, we want to be included in some of the wealth too. Like, if they're going to build across the street from me, that means they're going to come in, they're going to tear up all the concrete around that complex. But are they going to come across the street to where I live at and fix my concrete? Or is it something I got to do? Do I got to figure out how to get this money? How can we get something for the youth in Erie to, I'm sure y'all probably, I'm gonna hold this mic for 1 second because I feel like Erie is in the 1960s. I'm 52 years old, and I don't see anything that benefits the change for me. I will be 60 years old soon, and I just feel like I grew up with my mom and my dad in the 1950s. There's nothing for us to cling to. Like, I want to be proud of my city, but I think they have to pour their resources into other places except for the downtown area and in the Bayfront. I don't understand how Nick Scott can get all this money and there's other people out here that can use this money. We all can use this money. So, again, not to harp on that, Chuck, I know I was all over the place with it, but it is a lot of money for everybody. We just had the governor come here and he did this big thing about the Bayfront, and they're so happy about, like, what are we happy about? What we're celebrating pouring concrete. That does nothing for, what is that doing for the citizens? Exactly. Like, if I want to learn about African American art, where do I go? Because there's no money poured into that for the African Americans here. And then we'll sit back and complain about, oh, this black on black crime. Yeah, because they don't have anything to do. My man just told us he was an artist. I see my man Ty right here who worked with these kids, and there is nothing for them to do. I know Marcus pours a lot of energy into our youth here, and we still don't have anything for them to do because our money is stuck on the Bayfront. Hotels. Nick Scott got so much money and he still is able to get grants when he can barely come out of his pocket. Like, I don't, y'all gotta help me out, Chuck. Help me out.
I have to do both. I have to call, really publicly out what I'm seeing across this government, the impact that this shutdown is having, the impact of SNAP benefits, being lost by so many, and so many that I serve. And so on two fronts, I have to call out the systems, I have to call out those structures that are in place, but also have to mobilize. I have to do what I've been hearing, that I have to encourage us that in a real sense, there's not always gonna be somebody who's gonna come in and save us. We have to organize. One of the things that I talked to our congregation on today, I appreciate what Second Harvest is doing. I appreciate the conversation around how we duplicate services. But there's another part of that conversation within those 500 nonprofits, is that sometimes what happens is the people who are serving don't contextualize service. And there's many people that's gonna come to me before they go to anybody else. And what I can't do is I can't outsource help. As Second Baptist, we have to have a response for the people that we serve who find themselves in need. I can't tell them always to call somebody else. I need to have a response directly for them, and that's what we had to do on this morning, and as we navigate. So I would just say for me, it always has to be a both and. I have to give credit to my brother Andre Horton and really the fight that he has fought, and we talk about resources and that aren't always available for our community, and there is major truth to that. I agree with much of what I have heard, but I also know the fight that Andre fought for $10 million to be available for our community. And there were issues on both sides of that. The reason why it went from 10 million to where it ended up getting to. But there also is a conversation, and the reason why I say it's a both and, that there are the powers that be that are always fighting against us. But then there's the other side in which we have to be ready when the resources are available. So knowing the difference between somebody who's going to give you a grant versus somebody who is an investor is a very important conversation. Knowing how to communicate yourself in various spaces. knowing that when somebody says your project has to be shovel ready, that you can't wait until the opportunity comes to get yourself ready, that there are some things that we have to do. But when I talk about both and, that means that when we have conversations like this, that we're sharing information. And so one of my questions is going to be for every person on this panel over here. There are several concerns that I have, but I remember during the pandemic, I was hosting conversations, and I had one young lady who was on, and she was a multi-millionaire. She had multiple businesses that she was running. And in 2019 or so, she was telling people on my podcast to invest in AI. Well, we all know what happened. Just a few years later, AI just blew up. Now, years before, this person was saying, invest. Nobody, at least people that I were connected to, took her up on that. I share that anecdote because I want to know what are the opportunities in Erie that are coming down the pipe that people in this room need to be ready for. Not what has happened or the issues that we all know, but what are the conversations for the next 5 to 10 years that we need to be aware of that are being had in some private rooms, that I don't want to wait until the thing gets here and the decision has already been made. I'm wondering, are there conversations being had that people in this room can get themselves ready for?
I want to start with Mr. Slavin, you being a business expert, and going back to what Malcolm was saying about being pro-Black. How have you worked with the Black community, especially Black youth, to help encourage them to get into business enterprise?
Yeah. It's on. So I'm not going to insult anyone by listing off my pedigree of working with entrepreneurs. What I will tell you is that Erie is overblessed with resources to help support entrepreneurs of any kind. The frustration that I have is that I don't believe, because of the way I look, that I'm trusted in certain places or trusted by certain people, and therefore I'm not reached out to, and therefore I can't help. So the things that I've done are to reach out, to start being very active in places that are not the usual places for a guy that looks like me or does what I do. I think our community needs to go past, he looks like that, so I can't trust him. Marcus used to be in the room. I don't know where Marcus is right now. There he is. So in April of 2018, Marcus, me, and about a half dozen other people were sitting on the patio outside of room 33, smoking cigars as we do, and had a very impactful conversation. It was like half a dozen white guys and half a dozen Black and other people. And I grew up, no surprise, very privileged in St. Louis. I've lived here for 10 years. And one of the things that came out of that meeting was Marcus and a gentleman named Michael Outlaw shared with me the differences that they see in their everyday versus how I look at the world. And so Michael took me to a primarily Black bar because he wanted me to experience what it's like when a Black man walks into a white world. And I'd never experienced that. I'd never experienced being uncomfortable in any place in my life. So Michael took me to this bar. It's behind Mighty Fine Donuts. I can't think of the name of the bar. And he walked in, or excuse me, I walked in first. And you know that scene in the Blues Brothers where the record scratches and it feels like everyone's eyes are on you? It was just like that. And he let me experience that for a couple of minutes. Felt like a couple of hours, probably was only 10 seconds. And then he came up from behind me, put his hand on me, turned me around, and then we walked over the bar and everything was cool because Michael who is very well known, said this white guy was okay. It's the first time I've ever experienced something like that, and it's something that I seek out fairly regularly, trying to go into places where I know that a white guy, a privileged white guy, is probably not seen a whole lot. So I have a lot of friends who I count on holding me accountable for being in places that I need to be or should be. And that's not Black, that's not Latino, that's not New American, that's not anything. It's all of it. Because entrepreneurism should be equal to all. So I hope we continue to grow in that way and being more exposed to places that we typically wouldn't be welcomed.
I want to follow up and appreciate your answer. How have you enlisted other business leaders to join you in those efforts?
Say it one more time.
How have you enlisted other business leaders who are not Black in those efforts?
So many of you may remember a gentleman named Court Gould, who was a very active and passionate leader. He worked at the Community Foundation for a number of years. And one of the things that Court always encouraged me to think about was, who's not in the room? Doesn't come natural to me. But that's a really important component, and I really respect what Malcolm is doing. Who isn't in the room? That's the question that I ask a lot of people all the time. When we're working on something, when we're doing something, when we're putting something together, who's not here? Whose voice needs to be here? I'm not alone in that. That starts to filter throughout the community when we are looking at mayoral candidates, we're looking at county council candidates, we're looking at city council candidates, we're looking at elected leaders of our community. Who should be at the table? It's a critically important question.
Thank you.
How do we get money allocated for us if the CRIZ is a small word, but it sounds real big when you explain it, because obviously CRIZ is dealing with a lot of money. So there has to be some type of way that they could allocate maybe 2% of what they were dealing with to pump back into our communities.
So this is a very specific fight that happened a couple years ago about the control of $750 million that is just now starting to be spent. So this is the context for those of you that are less familiar with it. When we established that authority, there was a fight over who got control of that authority because they put forward a board, 9 people. Guess how many of them were Erie city residents that were people of color? Yeah, good call, 0. And I at the time was president of city council, and I fought like hell about that. And if you see the board that was then approved when it passed, we had 2 city residents that were people of color, and that's the only change that occurred. That's as much fighting as I had to do to get 4 votes on council. Because once we got to that point, 4 members of council were willing to go with the 0 number that was before. I was trying to make it a pretty ridiculous board, and I couldn't get enough votes to hold out with me on that. So this is what you have to do for seats at the table. Now, it went back, Senate Bill 654 from a year ago. They rewrote the whole thing, and they took those black guys off. Because now it's all in control of state senator and state representatives, and they wanted their own people on there, and they took the black ones from the city off. But I fought for it, and I will say that I still have hopes that it works out for the people. But this is stuff where seats at the table is significant, and there has been consistent barriers to provide those seats, and there are still some aspects of those seats that are drawn in for it.
So one more thing. One more thing, because ever since I've been involved with the situation we've been involved with, and you know what we've been working on, I've had the privilege of actually being invited to sit at some of these tables. And I've spoke with Deonte about the power structure in Erie, which is, we've always had our white men at the top, and you've had your couple African Americans that are privileged to sit at the table. And those same African American men are able to get the love of the money. If they, whatever they need, it's obtainable for them because they've been sitting for a couple years now. My goal is to make sure that moving forward, a person like Malcolm Pulliam is always sitting at the table because I gotta represent for the people that don't got no voice in our community, especially for my African-American brothers and sisters who don't know who to talk to about coming to get this money. There has to be a way that some of that money is allocated for the community that I'm from. I grew up on 22nd and German, and 22nd and German looks worse now than it did when I grew up there. Like, there's a garden, I guess they were trying to grow a garden where my grandmother's house was at. It's knocked down, but it was right next door to Cheney's Market. That area looks horrible. But down the street we have, I can't think of the organization now, that they came in and they built. Right. I guess, how do we get these funds to, like, and I keep looking at my brother back there, he stood up and said he is an artist, he want to work with the people, his people. Like, how can you get him to sit at that table so that he understands how to get the money to set up, not sit in the community center in a room in the back and people is invited into his room? How can he get the funds to get his own building to open up his own art show, just like they got downtown? I see the Children's Art Museum, but why don't we have an art museum in the African American communities where it's accessible to get to? Everybody can't get downtown.
Shoulder, I actually have a dream of one day having my own bookstore. And a lot of young Black adults and youth in Erie have a lot of different ideas for what they would want to see the community change and look like. Well, it often feels, and it's not a felt experience, it's a lived experience that the city is redeveloping, is revitalizing, and we are not included in the conversation. And that to be included in the conversation means having relationships with higher ups based on, and I'm someone who moved to Erie, so this is an outside perspective. Usually it's family connections, it's school connections. You all went to Cathedral Prep, or you went to Mercyhurst, or you went to Gannon. And what I see structurally is connected to Vanna's point about, you said food deserts, we now call it food apartheids. The food apartheid is reflective of the historical segregation that has existed in Erie, and it still exists. So whether it's housing, the city is segregated. When it comes to education, the city is segregated. And we're in an era where Erie is coming back, is revitalizing its economy, and great things are coming in. And there are a few Black businesses sprinkled here and there, but the speed for which the Black, New American, and other non-white people's businesses coming up is not the same speed of white businesses. And I appreciate you answering the question in the way that, like, that is what you're doing. To Nicholas's point about it sounding surface level, I think for younger Black adults, we're wanting to hear more about how you're mentoring youth, or bringing up the spaces where you know Black community comes together and raising them up to do those projects on their own rather than having to come to you. You know, we appreciate that you are someone who wants to help, but what can you do? Or not even just you, the people who have power. What can you do to make sure that those who have never had a seat at the table not only can get into the room, but expand the room and do their own thing? So I hope that expanded on your question a little bit.
May I? Not to switch towards you. You know, Brian's work is very narrowly entrepreneurial. Not to box you into his is, you know, technical and technologies focused in a way that is more restrictive than being able to take some of these entrepreneurs in the community that are doing community-oriented stuff and building them up. But I want to say to that end, I think in the last 5 years we have seen a base get set. And I can't say that it's growth at this point. I think it's more tilling and plowing than it is, and maybe a little bit of planting rather than seeing the growth at this point. But I'm thinking about where we were 5 years ago, and actually, Chuck, I should just give it to you. You talk about your brother all day. the opportunities that we're seeing downtown, and I point to Daryl because his brother is Chief Operating Officer, is that the right title? For the Erie Downtown Partnership, or I'm sorry, Erie Downtown Development Corporation. And so he's an intentional part of that, but he's also part of the financing that's happening on State Street, making sure that somebody said there's a void of that going eastward. He's the one that's actually, they're taking him and moving him to make that financing in diverse communities eastward. They're specifically doing that. But we're at the tilling stages. We're not seeing the growth on that. Erie Black Wall Street, where were they 5 years ago? Where are they now? It's dynamically grown. And then we're seeing stuff that's happened with the revolving loan fund at the city. And this is where I actually get to do something. I think it was at $6 million 5 years ago, or $3 million. It's up to almost $30 million. And there's a very intentional aspect of that being put into diversity. There's micro grants of $5,000 for those small businesses, the bookstores that want us to take it up a notch and add a cafe to it or something. And then it's been very intentional with the liaisons to the Black community, Mike Wildbot being specifically in that job when we were talking about him, and the liaisons to the New American community, and being able to focus on businesses that don't have a return on investment to the business starters, the entrepreneurs, but a return on investment to the community. So I know that the city designated part of the revolving loan fund to provide fiber optic internet, but it had to be done within qualified census tracts because there's a disparity between Black and white neighborhoods as far as their access to high-speed internet and what that does in a modern economy. There's not a return on investment on that other than seeing that the investment is in people and giving those people that greater opportunity where it matters. The revolving loan fund, what it's done for childcare, those aren't businesses that you have numbers you have to make. Childcare businesses don't do that, but the city understanding that single mothers need childcare if they want to be able to contribute to the economy is a different kind of economic development that is community oriented, that is very different place. Now, this is 5 years. I continually am going to be pointing. I'm not saying that things are solved, but I think there has been some really strong progress in the last few years on this.
So to your point, Chuck, and Brian, you're obviously in the room having to answer for a whole segment of the community. Who's not in the room right now to answer some of those questions?
Let's start off on one.
That's not on, is it? All right. So there's an operating principle that we work under in the economic development community. So you think Chamber and Radius and Janessa, Erie's Black Wall Street. There's names and names and names. There's an operating principle that we operate under called no wrong door. The idea behind no wrong door is you knock on anyone's door, and that person has two responsibilities. One, say yes to the conversation. So when I was an entrepreneur trying to make my way in the world, I got way too many go away kid, you bother me. So when I moved here 10 years ago, my promise to myself was I'd always be yes for the conversation. Now, I'm not always the answer. To Chuck's point, we invest very specifically, but I know enough about the economic development system in order to get someone pointed in the right direction. Kind of what we did a couple of weeks ago with Jenny's friend. So, and that's not just me. That's, anyone up here, I would guess, and all of you, are now invited to point people at me to make sure that they get in the system, they're respected for what they're doing. It may not be something that I can advance within Ben Franklin, but it's definitely something that deserves the light of day within the opportunities that we can present. And it doesn't matter what business it is, or what your color of skin is, or where you came from, or how long you've been here, who you love, and none of that. You're an entrepreneur, you're trying to live your vision, we'll find a way to help you. And so if that's not clear yet, and I forget the gentleman's name in the back, but if that's not clear yet to everyone in this room, then let's make sure you all hear it loudly and clearly. Encourage your friends, your people you know, you yourself, reach out, and we can be helpful. I cannot possibly be in every room where I'm not welcomed. So I'm encouraging you all to get those folks to reach out, and we'll find a way, we'll find a path to help them.
Brother Malcolm got to say.
So I got a question, and we'll keep it with the money since we're talking about all this money. How can we spread some of this money? What I see is we spending money on the bayfront. I don't know why, but it's money being spent on the bayfront. I see it's more hotels going down on the bayfront. I don't know why. There's nothing to do on the bayfront. So how can we get some of this money up and over 22nd and German or 35th and Holland or where I live out on the west side? And this probably is more for Chuck. I seen last week on Facebook that they're building that complex on Poplar, between Poplar and Cherry. I live on Poplar. I live on 2nd and Poplar. So I will be right across the street from where they're building. That's a good idea, I guess. I'm sure me and my wife is not gonna sleep some mornings with all the banging and chattering that they're gonna be doing over there. But again, how can we spread some of this money to all these other people? My man back there said he an artist. I'm sure he probably applied for something and you probably got denied because we too busy worried about the bayfront, the hotels. We got more restaurants that aren't working in the city right now than we've ever had before. I've seen so many ribbon cuttings and then in 2 weeks, the place ain't even open no more. How can we get some of these resources to, like that young lady right there? They don't have nothing to do. My grandkids go to Erie High, they go to some of these schools out here, and I know they don't have nothing to do. How can we spread out this money so that, I guess I want to say, we want to be included in some of the wealth too. Like, if they're going to build across the street from me, that means they're going to come in, they're going to tear up all the concrete around that complex. But are they going to come across the street to where I live at and fix my concrete, or is it something I gotta do? Do I gotta figure out how to get this money? How can we get something for the youth in Erie to, I'm sure y'all probably, I'm gonna hold this mic for 1 second because I feel like Erie is in the 1960s. I'm 52 years old and I don't see anything that benefits the change for me. I will be 60 years old soon, and I just feel like I grew up with my mom and my dad in the 1950s. There's nothing for us to cling to. Like, I want to be proud of my city, but I think they have to pour their resources into other places except for the downtown area and in the Bayfront. I don't understand how Nick Scott can get all this money and there's other people out here that can use this money. We all can use this money. So, again, not to harp on that, Chuck, I know I was all over the place with it, but it is a lot of money for everybody. We just had the governor come here and he did this big thing about the Bayfront, and they so happy about, like, what are we happy about? We're celebrating pouring concrete. That does nothing for, what is that doing for the citizens? Exactly. Like, if I want to learn about African-American art, where do I go? Because there's no money poured into that for the African-Americans here. And then we'll sit back and complain about, oh, this black on black crime. Yeah, because they don't have anything to do. My man just told us he was an artist. I see my man Ty right here who worked with these kids and there is nothing for them to do. I know Marcus pours a lot of energy into our youth here, and we still don't have anything for them to do because our money is stuck on the Bayfront. Hotels. Nick Scott got so much money and he still is able to get grants when he can barely come out of his pocket.
Because I got answers from other people wondering the same things as me. So my first thing that I want to get off my chest is, if these hotels are only, like if their taxes are only paying for, excuse me if I get them wrong, but 2 teachers, 1 cop, and some of the county executive, I don't know exactly what it would be called. Why can't it be put towards more of an educational side? I personally, decided that I was gonna do the dual degree program that they offer to Erie County collegiate students because I felt like at Collegiate Academy, I wasn't getting the education I needed. I wasn't getting the classes I needed, and they just simply, like, I needed a higher education at that moment in time, which I'm getting now, which I'm very grateful for. But also, why don't we try to put it towards bringing Black history into schools? No offense, and please don't take this the wrong way, but I'm tired of hearing about Martin Luther King and Rosa Parks. There are so many other Black African Americans that we bring on to the world. I mean, how many kids my age know about the Black Panthers? They probably think I'm talking about Wakanda. I mean, you can't get me wrong. A lot of people my age, we don't know a lot about Black history, and it's a problem. And if we want to stop the segregation that we are having in this community, and we want everybody to come together, then everybody needs to know the true history behind and what happened. Because without the truth, and without us knowing that, hey, calling someone a monkey, it's not right. Because I'm gonna tell you right now, I go to college, I don't hear stuff like that. But I go to high school, I hear you monkey, you cotton picker, I hear all these names. And I simply think it's just because they're ignorant to the fact that we haven't gone the correct education. We haven't learned about Black history. Yeah, there's a class at Collegiate called AP African American History, but you have to want to take it. They don't make you take it like they make you take European history. Why do I need to know about European history? Why don't I need to know about the people who are in my country? Why do I need to know about Europe? That's the big question. Okay, hold on. Okay, and then my next thing is, okay, if you know me, you know I work at the Sisters of St. Joseph Neighborhood Network, and I'm a garden worker. I've been working there for 3 years, okay? My whole passion is to getting food into places. I constantly, if you meet me at my job, I constantly tell you that when I get older, I want to become PT. I want to go into the military, and then when I come back, I want to bless everybody. I want to have my own farm, and I want to be able to make it so everybody's affordable. Now, I would like to get back onto your topic. Yeah, we can do all that, but we need to educate the youth on why it's so important. I feel like people who, like my fellow peers, they haven't had the opportunity to get educated on why it's so important to have fruits and vegetables, why it's so important to have nutrients and a balanced diet. I only learned that because I was wrestling and I needed to learn how to control my weight. But I feel like he is right. There is a big food desert, and it doesn't just take one person. It needs to take all of us, not just us in this room, but everybody out there. Because there can't just be 2 people building community gardens and you expect only them to take care of it. We need all of us to come together and collaborate on this. Everyone needs to get engaged. Okay, I'm sorry, I had one more thing. And then another thing I wanted to say is why do we focus on building hotels? I get that it's good for the revenue and it brings in more people into coming to Erie. But why are we so focused on bringing people here when the citizens themselves aren't happy here? Why can't we focus more on making our citizens, making our population happy, and making sure that we stay here, not just the young, but the older people, making sure that we want to stay here, and making sure that we enjoy it here? Why do we just focus on bringing people in? Because I truly believe, like you said, I'm sorry, I'm really bad with names, but like you said, we should be able to build a pyramid where people can get childcare affordable. Because if you don't know, childcare is like $400 a day, and most African American people in this community cannot afford that. Yeah. Having a place where we can sell organic and fresh baked groceries. Yep. It's just something to leave you with. Like I said, I'm only a 16-year-old. I have a lot of bright ideas, but it also takes inviting the youth. Because like I said, a lot of my youth people, they're not in this room because they're scared. We've always been looked down at. Why, that's it. Thank you.
You are amazing, by the way. I definitely want to say that you are amazing, and thank you for using your voice. That's why I wanted to make sure we ended with you, because you're the next generation. Yes. You're the one that's got to keep this stuff going, and you got to keep us in check. You know what I mean? So that's important. That's important. And so, first of all, a round of applause for all of you tonight. A round of applause for our wonderful panel. You know, just a little bit of background about me, because I didn't really go too much into it. You know, I run an organization called Open Eyes. We do a lot of consulting, coaching work, and we have some other exciting news coming up too in the therapeutic realm. But one of the things that, like, when I'm in trainings or workshops with individuals, one thing that I always talk about is, we've talked a lot about many different things, and it's always about like what is next, right? We can talk until we're blue in the face, but it's good to talk. Don't get me wrong. I want to establish that it's great to have these conversations, because some things that were shared tonight, some people may not know that was an issue in the first place. Oh, I didn't realize it was impacting these individuals like to that degree. I didn't know that this was happening. Now I know. And I'm not going to fault anybody for not knowing, but now that we're in this room and we've heard so many different things, what are we going to do beyond tonight? Yeah. That's always the biggest question. And one word that I talked about before we got started was connection. And so I will reiterate this. I want you all to connect with each other. And Amber, she sent me a message too. She said, make sure you incorporate that if you weren't already. And I said, I'm on it, Amber. So I appreciate, shout out to Amber too for thinking about that too. So I gotta give her love for that as well. But make the connections. And that's what I tell my folks and all the organizations, school districts I work with. How are you communicating with each other? What type of trust is being established? Are we truly embodying cohesive behaviors? Or are we staying in our silos? My organization does this. I can't work with you. I can't cross-collaborate. No, that mindset is not necessary. It's not productive. And we're setting a tone for the younger people when we as adults act like children and little kids, and we can't formulate our thoughts, and we can't get ourselves together, and we can't cooperate, and we go to war with each other in our community. It's like, what are we doing there? What are we doing? We have to act better. We have to do better. People are watching. I want Erie to be the model city for others, to say, oh, they may have disagreements, but they got it together. They know how to work collaboratively. I'm not saying we have to agree with each other every single time. That's just not what it's about. We can disagree, but we can disagree respectfully. We can disagree empathetically. It's okay to have differences of opinions. Let's find our commonalities. And I want a big shout out too for the Black Panther conversation, because most of you, I don't know if you're familiar with Fred Hampton, but if you are, Fred Hampton is one of my favorite people ever, because I just love everything about Fred. He developed this thing called the Rainbow Coalition, right? And this was the time where the Black Panther Party was in complete disarray. You know, Bobby Seale was locked up. Bobby Seale was on the run. Dr. Huey Newton was in jail. There was really nothing going on in the party. And this 19-year-old kid in Chicago came up and stepped up to the podium and said, black power to black people, white power to white people, yellow power to yellow people, green power to green people, so on and so forth. And everybody stopped. And I'm like, who is this kid? Like, where is he? Why is he talking about unification like this? That's such a crazy concept. And he said, we all have the ability, we all have some commonalities. And he went to the Young Lords, the Latino group. He went to the Young Patriots, Southern group, white group. And he said, look, we have all these differences. And yes, we celebrate differences and we appreciate that. But we also need to start focusing on our commonalities. And he said, your people are hurting, so are mine. My people are poor, so yeah, our people are poor too. What can we do to get together? So we banded the Black Panthers, the Young Lords, the Young Patriots, and they formed this Rainbow Coalition. And they worked together in unity, despite the differences and despite where they came from and the walks of life that they were a part of. They found the commonality. And I heard a lot of issues tonight. So my encouragement for you all is to connect when this is done. Find that commonality, and let's put together some actionable items so we can make Erie a great and productive city and county. That's what we need to do. All this back and forth, bickering, it's not bringing us anything, but it's destroying us. It's destroying us. And so I'm sorry to get off on a little soapbox there. I told Deonte I was going to say a few words, and of course, I don't. So, I want to give a big shout out to this man right here, Mr. Deonte. Yeah, let's stand up. Let's stand up. Let's stand up. Because Deonte he's been at it. He's been growing. He has a powerful presence. And when he asked me to co-moderate this, I was honored, above honored. And so this is just going to be the first of many. We're making this happen. We're going to change the Erie dynamic. So please, stay with us, stick with us. Let's band our voices together, and let's be productive and proactive. You know what I'm saying?
I just want to thank everybody for coming. And the reason I stood behind this podium, I run my mouth all day. Y'all see me on social media all day, so it was more or less, I don't need to be a part of this. Just creating a space and creating an opportunity, inviting some of my friends who I know do care, inviting some people who I have conversations with this and allowing them to speak, and then allowing you all to listen and exchange those conversations, because like what Brandon said, like we all have struggles, you know what I mean? And we need to figure out how we can unite as a community, regardless of our differences. We're at a point in time where we need each other, you know what I mean? Everybody has issues, everybody has concerns, we all have struggles, and we need to figure out how we can start helping one another. So I'm glad that you brought the point of connecting, because I honestly wasn't expecting us to talk until 6:30. So the last couple minutes I was gonna be like, why don't you all start exchanging information, because I don't wanna be held responsible solely for the next step. I don't wanna put that just on Brandon. I don't wanna put that just on any of the panelists, but what we do have is a room full of people who are at least concerned enough to come and listen. So what I mean? So when you're in a place or you're in a space of people who are concerned enough to listen, you should probably talk to them, regardless of what they look like, regardless of their political party, regardless of their religion. We all have concerns, which is why we came here. I'm so excited that you all decided to show up and do this. And if you decided to show up for me, I appreciate it, but it was never about me. It was about you all. So we are seeing the people who actually are concerned. We are seeing the people who actually want to listen to what people have to say, and we are hearing from some of the people who actually want to do something. And I have to kudos to Deonte, because, man, this young lady is amazing, man. She does an amazing job. When you see her doing good things, we love that, we need to recognize that. But I'm going to leave it to the panel to have any final statements or any final comments before we get out of here. I know some of y'all want to go watch some football or something. Also, huge shout out to Marcus Atkinson and his assistant with BlaXcess Media. They're doing all the media, so we'll have some stuff going as far as we're going to be putting some videos back out there, and we're also going to create a survey. I didn't have it together right. This all came off the top of my head. You know what I mean? And we are putting things together as the days went by. So as far as having a survey right this second, I don't. But hopefully for everybody who came and you picked up on this from social media, be on the lookout for the survey, because it is going to be important that we get you all's feedback. So thank you all again. I appreciate you. But I'll allow my panelists to have last little comments, and then we can head on out.
I'll go first. I want to definitely thank Deonte for putting this together. This was a good idea. It should have been done a long time ago. It's good to see black, white, brown, every different nationality that's in here for one common goal, and we want the best for Erie. For me, I have to thank my wife for letting me come. So if y'all see me, she was texting me. And I say that to say this because when I got into the situation with Marcello, the first person that I spoke with was my wife. I told her, you know how passionate I am about when I see the police do something to a black man. So, to expand on that, when George Floyd got killed, I was at home, I was watching TV, and I was watching that live. And when he turned his face to that camera, and he said his mom, and he couldn't breathe, I swear, I started to cry because I felt like he was telling me, like, Malcolm, come help me. And I couldn't jump through the TV to help him. That changed me. It changed me in so many ways that I would never think that this would happen in Erie. So like you say about the Black Panthers, I'll be 53 next month. I started reading on the Black Panthers when I was 13. So my mind has always been in that era. I was born in the 70s, but if I was 20 in the 70s or the 60s, I would have been a Black Panther. So if you see us out and you see us screaming justice for Cello, we mean that. We do not take this for granted. This is a serious matter. We want everybody to continue to support us because we have a lot of people that don't support us about getting justice for Cello. I'm not going to stop screaming justice for Cello. You will not stop seeing me out on social media or out at these protests. I understand the gravity of this. I know everybody don't agree with what we doing, and that's okay. Because at the end of the day, this is about protecting Cello's name. This is about his kids. This is about his mom and his dad. We have to continue fighting for him. If we stop, then this goes away. Remember, I said my name is Malcolm for a reason. I mean that. We have to continue fighting for Marcello. There is a lot of people trying to take his name and tarnish it. They will not do that on my watch. One thing, if you pay attention to me on social media, I don't argue with people. I don't engage with people. I say what I gotta say and I let it go. If I catch somebody slip on my page and they say, F you or you need to shut up, I don't go back and forth with them. I delete them and I block them and I keep moving. One thing about this, we have to stay disciplined. I am very disciplined about this. Again, it's not about me. This is about getting justice for Cello. So please continue to support us. This is a challenge that I never thought that we would go through in Erie, Pennsylvania. I understand where I'm from. This is not the most supportive city concerning black men with law enforcement. That's just facts. I grew up with people that did 20 plus years and came home and it feels like nothing's changed. I'm here to make change. Again, please continue to support us. We appreciate all the words, all the help, and please give back to his mom and his dad. They're the ones that's suffering. Remember, he has a son in college. He has a baby son that's 8 years old, 7, 8 years old, that is going through an emotional time right now. I couldn't imagine not seeing my dad or my dad getting took out the way that he was taken out. He didn't deserve that, and I'm gonna keep saying that. He did not deserve what he got. There is nobody in this world that can sit there and look me eye to eye and say, that man deserved to die that way. The reason I'm gonna keep fighting, because if that was me, I am a black man, I would have went to jail that night. No disrespect to anybody in here, but that cannot happen. This man is at home enjoying himself. Pressure needs to continue to be applied to him. He should not be able to go to sleep at night. He should sleep in 5-minute intervals. And that is just how I feel, because this is an injustice. The district attorney is out of pocket for not doing what she needs to do. She has to make this right. It is a family grieving about Marcello Woodard. This should be all across the United States. So again, please share. If you see some of the stuff that we share, please share it. Please help us. This should be worldwide. I know my social media reaches people, but we need all the help we can get. This will not be politicized. This will stay where it needs to stay. But at some point, somebody bigger than Malcolm Pulliam or Deonte, Cooley, or whomever has helped us with this cause needs to come in and help us apply pressure. Like, I can't stop thinking about this. And again, I go back to my wife. I asked her, you know, I'm gonna be in this. And she said, I understand, I know you. Do what you gotta do to help get justice for Marcello. So that's what I'm gonna do. And I appreciate everybody for coming to this event. And again, as we always say, it's justice for Cello until justice is served.
I know other people have other things to say, but I'm literally going to explode if I don't say this. So, first of all, I want to say that AI is an issue. And as somebody that is studying AI right now, my picture is going to be on that wall. Right over there with the Lydia Ramey Fellowship, my picture will be on that wall. And why? Because we don't have a lot of Black women in this community stepping up to the plate either. We need Black women in leadership, and I'm looking at you because we need to work together. The next people that need to be sitting up here on this panel are young people. Because I'm tired of the circles. Respect. But I got math solutions. When we talking about feeding people, what they're doing right now in Harbor Creek is they're taking the fish that come up from the lake and they're putting that into their soil and they're putting that into their food and they're distributing it. We need to be able to do that in Erie County, across Erie County, because we have the resources to do it. And I'm watching people in Harbor Creek do it. When it comes to Marcello, advocating through art, we need murals. We need more murals. We need more murals everywhere downtown. That's what needs to be down there. Because the economic future of Erie, Pennsylvania is entertainment. We have so many talented people here. We have so many talented youth here that we could be taking up the space and we can be competing with places like Buffalo, Pittsburgh, Cleveland. Why aren't we utilizing that? We have the hotels. Might as well put those hotels to work. Because we need to get entertainment up in here. When it comes to policing, we need neighborhood watch. We don't want police around, then we need to start staying up late at night and monitoring our communities, seeing who's coming in and out of the neighborhoods, and knowing everybody, talking to everybody. When it comes to the point of Black people, I love Black people. I'm half Black, my dad is Black, my mom is white. But one hard truth that I can say is Black people are goddamn stubborn. Stubborn. And they are not showing up for cello the way that we need them to show up. But you know what they would show up to? A house party. So if we need to pull people out and throw a party, maybe that's what we need to do. Curtis Jones left, and I'm kind of upset that he did because I had a point to make with him. He's a very powerful individual that can get people money like that. I know he could do it. And that's my challenge to him and everybody in this room that is a powerful Black leader. Do what you say you can do. Because where were you guys when the school shut down and everything collided? Nowhere. I was in Erie High by myself. Motri, respect to him, but he's disappointing. Very disappointing. Very disappointing. And I'm disgusted. I'm disgusted in the Black leadership here in Erie, in America, period. Because it needs to be self-accountability. And not all representation is good representation. And that's the hard truth that I had to learn living in the city of Erie. There's so many people that got me involved in this because they thought I was hot. And I am. But let me tell you, we need to protect our youth because young ladies and young gentlemen are being attacked. We have predators running this country right now. We want to talk about the youth. How are we going to protect them from predators? Because they're everywhere. If we want to start getting the youth involved in these things, we need to start checking who is really in charge of these youth programs. Because it's people I don't trust, and it's people that you shouldn't be trusting either. And I'm gonna call out. Because at the end of the day, we need radical compassion, self-accountability now. Now.
Yeah, kind of tough to go after Malcolm and Savannah, so I definitely agree with the sentiments of what they're saying. Just thank everyone for being here. Again, my name is Jerry Stashevsky. I'm on Facebook if anyone's interested in what I'm doing with the water, and I'm really interested in the Erie Gauge War, Erie Rivers. I've been making shirts for that for like 10 years. I think that could be a cool part of Erie's brand in the future. If you're not aware of the Erie Gauge War, and just thanks for coming. Not really much more to add, and thanks for involving me, Deonte. Thanks for doing it again. So appreciate you. Yes, sir.
I had planned to leave to go knock doors, but for the election, it was just so engaging I couldn't leave. This is the village, an active action, and I'm really blessed that one, Deonte put on this event, and two, that you all engaged in the way that you did. It didn't come up too much for me tonight, but I have serious concerns. I appreciate the diversity of development happening, but I think other people in the room have raised that we have serious concerns about the intention behind development and who is at the table and who is not in the room. I think this space and continuing to have these kind of spaces will allow us the opportunity to ask serious questions and know what you said, Reverend Cook, about what do we not know that's coming down the line, so we can actually engage with it rather than complaining about it because it's already been decided on. So I find that really valuable, and I have nothing really to add after everything that has already been said, so thank you.
I'll just say thank you again. This is the kind of leadership that we need for such a time as this. I've said this about Deonte in many ways, said it to him, that his kind of voice, his style resonates with people who haven't been engaged. And we see that in this room on today. So I pray that God will continue to bless him. I pray that God will give him strength